I'm just going to set the stage for everybody here. You are one of the most thoughtful and talented women's fashion designers in the industry. I would say that your brand is in making women feel their most confident, beautiful selves. That's kind of what you are expert at. And I want to congratulate you because you just celebrated a pretty big milestone as a brand, 10 plus years.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for your kind words. Yes, it's been, 10 years.
10 years. And I think, to celebrate those 10 years, you came out with a book. I'm just going to hold it up. That was named Prabal Gurung.
Yeah.
And in this book, I would say one of the big takeaways is, in some ways, you're the embodiment of the American dream. Do you see yourself that way? Do you identify with that?
When I think about my journey from where I started to where I am today, and in this particular moment talking to you, it really embodies what I believed what American dream is and why I chose to come to America. For me, America was less of a country, but more of an idea that different kinds of people, different looking people with different ideas, shapes and sizes could not only just exist together, but were celebrated. That's what I came here for. I was a kid in Nepal, and I grew up I was born in Singapore. I grew up in Nepal, in India, London, and Australia. And I traveled everywhere, but I hadn't come to America. But I was always, I would say, New York was beckoning, to me via their incredible artists, like whether it was Basquiat, whether it's Andy Warhol, Madonna, Debbie Harry, Patti Smith, all of them were, I felt like my kindred spirit. I just felt like they were here for one simple reason, to express themselves through their art and creativity. And that's what I wanted to do, because I was pretty much a misfit back home in Nepal. I went to an all-boys boarding school. I was always told I was different. I didn't do the things that regular guys did. My own sense of sanity and protection was sketching a lot. All my notebooks and textbooks were filled with sketches of women in clothes and dresses and heels and shoes and all of that stuff. So, and early on, I pretty much realized that, when you're constantly told you're different by this society and where you're growing up, it's, you start to, there are two ways you can go. One, you can feel like a victim, right? And you can be like, okay, nobody accepts me, poor me. Or I pretty much early on, I realized, what? The fact that everyone is telling me I'm different, the fact that nobody's allowing me in their circle, gives me the freedom to define my own circle, my own path, the line that I, walk on. And so I guess, so New York, America was that place for me. So I would say that's what it is. Yeah.
I love it. So this book, in so many ways, it captures your artistic journey. I think it captures a very spiritual journey as well. And the book includes mood boards, sketches, runway images, editorials. What do you hope is kind of the biggest takeaway for people who have not read the book, or for people who do have the book?
I hope, one thing I do hope when people read this book, and whether they look at it visually and read through all the text that stories that I've written there, I hope one takeaway is that you really can live your life the way you want to. I hope they realize that through my work, through my existence, the way I look, things that I sent down the runway, the storytelling that I did through my runway, through models and the clothes that I did. I hope they realize, the biggest thing that one can have is courage. Courage to tell your own story, courage to be themselves. And I do hope that, people walk away feeling like, actually, there's no hard set rule for success. There's no a formula for success. The only formula I truly believe is hard work and to understand figure out what your passion is, true passion is, so where work doesn't feel like work. So my thing is, I hope they walk away feeling like they don't have to adhere to any kind of societal norms to live their lives, follow their career, because life is too short. That's how I look at it. Life is too short for us to be worrying about what everyone else is going to say. Because I always say, like, growing up, as painful as it was when you didn't get any kind of validation, it was also, when I look back, it was the biggest gift the universe could have given to me, because I never got validation then. I never required it, and I still don't require it. Believe it or not, all my friends know this. I am literally free of needing any kind of validation or needing likes on my Instagram post. I really don't care, because my thing, and it's not an arrogance, it's just like, I'm telling a story. Hopefully you'll come with my journey, because I'm also willing to hear your story and learn, right? So anyway, long answer, but I do hope that people walk away feeling like, that life is lived better when you don't have worry of validation, and life is better when it's all colorful, literally and metaphorically.
I couldn't agree more. I admire your fearlessness, and just the fact that you don't need that validation is very unusual, especially today. And speaking of fearlessness, let's talk about the fact that you held your very first New York City Fashion Week presentation in 2009. It was an economic recession.
Yes.
You were starting your brand, and you just went ahead and presented during Fashion Week. I feel, first of all, this art community might be interested to know you held it at the Flag Art Foundation in Chelsea. So maybe tell us a little bit how you wound up showing here, and what happened that afternoon, that evening, when you showed the collection.
Oh, good boy. So I decided to do my, I was a design director. I started as an assistant designer and became a design director. There was always bosses above me at Bill Blass. The house of Bill Blass was closing, and I'd looked for jobs at other places, and, I really didn't get any. And so, and nobody was hired. I decided, thought about it. I was like, I feel like what I want to do, the story that I want to tell, clothes that I want to make, conversation I want to have around style and substance, nobody was doing. That's what I felt, and point of view. So let me just give it a shot. So I had a little bit of savings from Bill Blass days. I went from a big, massive apartment with a backyard and a garden to a tiny little studio in East Village, right in front of Hell's Angels. Then I went on unemployment, because I needed extra money to be able to feed myself, and I had hired one assistant, my intern, as an assistant, and so I went on unemployment. I went on a lot of dates, okay, to make sure that I had at least one meal a day, and then, I'm not even kidding you, it was literally that, and then so when I all the seamstresses from Bill Blass, they were seamstresses who came from Chanel, Ungaro, Lacroix, and all the tailors who were from Armani. They took my clothes home and they started making it for me. They were like, we'll help you out. It was like a community building. And then my friends had come, my close friends had come, and they said, we'll produce the show, blah, 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 And I remember thinking, we don't have a venue. I was like, we can just show it somewhere. We didn't know where to. Right around that time, we had a client, Glenn Furman and Amanda, who owned the Flag Art Foundation. So Glenn had invited me for dinner at their place. I met them at Bill Blass days at a sample sale, okay? And so they were talking to me. So what are your plans? I said, I'm planning to do this thing, do my presentation, and I just don't have the venue, so I don't know. And I didn't even realize they had a gallery. So then Amanda was like, at the time they were engaged, I think, or they were not engaged, they were dating. Amanda was like, why don't you show at Glenn's gallery? I mean, Glenn was, I'm not sure if he was ready for it, but then they were such a big sport, and they were he was like, sure. So we got that place, okay, so that was the biggest thing. Then MAC Cosmetics came on board as one of the sponsors. So I did a, and my one of the biggest stylists at the time, Tina Laconin, she came on board as a stylist, and so my friends produced the show. So it was 2 hours presentation, and there were around like, I think in 19, 20 models. They were like all standing. And the first hour in itself, it was like just the assistant editors, assistant buyers, friends from the industry. They started texting their bosses, and that's when everyone from Vogue came, Kathy Orton from New York Times, Women's Wear Daily, everyone came, and everyone seemed to like it. And for me, it was like, and I remember one of the reviewers, now it's Vogue Runway, it used to be style.com. She asked me, who's this woman? And I said, thinking man's sex symbol. That's what, and so that's how it started. That set the tone for it. Next morning, I woke up, just so that Women's Wear Daily, usually the cover is, for 7 days, New York Fashion Week, it's usually allocated for the big guns, Marc Jacobs, Calvin, Ralph, Donna, all of them. I woke up and it was my collection on the cover, So that took off. That's how it started, yeah.
I mean, it's honestly an unbelievable story to have your first presentation and wake up and have your whole collection on the cover of Women's Wear Daily, part of the Penske family. Pretty incredible.
No, I'm forever grateful. That particular moment really changed my life, and I remember. I won't lie to you, because if I don't tell this particular story, it might come across like I had everything sorted out, and I'm a guy who has it all together. It's not. I remember 2 nights before the presentation, I was in my bed, lying there, curled up and thinking, am I making the biggest mistake of my life? Is it good enough? And that's how I am as a creative person. My thing is it good enough? Is it good enough of a story that I want to tell? It was not, are people going to like it? My thing was, if there's one person who likes it, I'm happy. This is what I wanted to say. And so it was a collection presented, not just, it had anxieties, attached to it also. Right. So I just wanted to make sure that, as a creative person, we go through it. Yeah.
But there is a fearlessness about you that's pretty incredible. And it sort of feels like you're always manifesting, whether you're aware of it or not, you're always putting it out there. And speaking of manifesting, within the first year, you had Oprah requesting a custom gown. You had Michelle Obama requesting a gown, which she notably wore to the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And honestly, when we look back at the last 10 years of Prabal, it's just been it's not just fabulous women. It's some of the smartest, most just interesting women in our lifetime that are drawn to your brand. And not to put you on the spot, why do you think that is? Why are so many people drawn to your brand? Such notable figures. I mean, it's a hard question to ask you directly, but
I can't, nobody has a perfect answer to this, but I will say I do my job with the utmost honesty and integrity. And my love for women and my respect for women is genuinely heartfelt, because I was brought up by my mother, a single mother, who brought us up. I've seen sexism in its full display ever since I was a kid. I've seen all those things that you talk about, women have to face, minorities have to face, ever since I was a kid. So I've always believed, my whole mantra has always been about not just celebrating, but making sure matriarchy is in power, because the world is so ruled by patriarchy. It's so patriarchal. So my thing has always been about that, celebrating women, making sure they have choices and options rather than clothes that are dictated by me. So I think, and my values and everything that resonates. And then, I always feel I make clothes because it brings me joy. Maybe that joy resonates, And I remember when I started out, in fashion at that time, it used to be, if you love fashion, you must be a frivolous woman or a girl who have ample of time, husband's money, that kind of, it was that. Or if you're a really smart girl, you didn't care about how you looked, That was the narrative at that time that was being celebrated. I didn't think it should be mutually exclusive, style and substance. So that was my thing. I kept on forcing, because for me, what I find really fascinating, and I've seen it in my real life also, nothing is, when a woman is in a full feminine glory, and however she wants to display that, whether through fashion or whatever it is, her true being, nothing is more unnerving to patriarchy than that. And I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen because even today in 2020, we might talk about all the rights and everything for women, like an equal opportunity, like that, all this conversation. It still isn't like that. If you look around the world, even in America, So I just feel like I understand. I think I am that best friend to all these women, even if they don't know me personally, because I'm genuinely fascinated by women, and I'm genuinely fascinated by the matriarchal energy that the world needs, And I think when I talk about matriarchal energy, it is nurturing, like very conscious and ambition with conscience, It is very much, and the absolute truth is nobody can I think multitask better than women. That's how I feel like, So I think it's all these factors, I guess, it adds up to it. Like when one of my biggest heroes have been Gloria Steinem, and when I've always loved her. And when she came to my show, which happened to be her first show ever that she's ever been to, that kind of validated for me. I'm very like in a Tarana Burke, like Huma Abedin. So my shows and my after show parties or any dinner parties are always mixed with people, women who traditionally, however they want to identify themselves with, people however they want to identify themselves with. And it's colorful. It is, and that's why everyone, whenever they come around, they see each other. They're like, "Wow, it doesn't feel like a fashion party," because that's how I am. I always see I'm a joy seeker. I'm a joy seeker because So that's how I think everything comes together. So to answer your question, I think it is. I think it's purely because I love what I do, and I genuinely love these women whom I dress.
Well, it definitely comes through. And I let's talk about you female artists, since we're speaking about strong women. You have certain female artists who are constant reference points for you, whether it's architect Zaha Hadid, Georgia O'Keeffe, Cecily Brown, Cindy Sherman, Frida Kahlo, Tracy Emin, all mentioned in your book. And I believe when you launched your shoe collection, you named them all after these artists.
Yes, I did.
But talk to us about why these specific female artists, and maybe if you want to give any examples of how they've directly impacted some of your designs.
Yeah. I think a lot of time growing up, whether it was in Asia or in Europe or here, I feel like, any field, whether it's music or art, men are far more celebrated, they have more dominance by the virtue of, I don't know, I know why, but also but I've always been, as I said, I've always been drawn by the female energy, in the universe, and I want to be able to celebrate that. So all these artists, for me, their existence, their work, their presence in real life, within history, was a defiance. It was a protest against patriarchal beliefs and system. That to me is really powerful, right? So I've always been drawn by these women and these artists. So like, for instance, Georgia O'Keeffe, when I was it was this idea, when I was doing that collection, I was so drawn by the strength in her work, and in that particular moment, what I was feeling. And a lot of the collections it chronicles literally my own personal journey where I was, and so that was really powerful to me. And when I did my collection for Tasaka, where I'm the creative director, it's a fine jewelry line in Japan. I also I went to, I think, White Cube Gallery in London, and it was a surrealism in an exhibition, but with all female artists only. And and for the longest period of time, surrealism has been through a male gaze, and so to me, to see women having a voice, women having that power, I just feel it brought a different nuanced idea to an all pre-existing conversation around art, creativity. And I just find it like, for me, all of these artists, female artists, were really just defiant, defiant in their work and presence. And I just found it like inspiring. That's how yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, perhaps part of your love of women comes from, I felt as I was reading your book, it was really a love letter to your mom.
Yes.
And that in many ways, your mother has been your greatest muse all of these years. Yeah. And this is, I'm going a little sideways here, but one of your collections was inspired by your mother's perfume bottle.
Yes, the second collection, yeah.
Can you actually just quickly talk about that?
Yeah, it was Yves Saint Laurent, the Rive Gauche perfume bottle. So when I was growing up in Nepal, like, my mom was she worked, she had her own business, she was in politics, all of that stuff. So she was a working mother but was also incredibly involved mother. So I would watch her, like, come back from work and then, like, talk with us, like, do our stuff, and then she would get ready. And she would put on this red lipstick, like, and I would watch her, like, when she was getting ready in front of her vanity. And then I could see the transformation, and I could see the way she held herself as she got ready and walked away. And the last thing that she always sprayed was like this perfume, And that bottle, to me, in that particular moment, really captured my idea of what I thought as a kid. What I thought when I saw that happen, as my mom's like, let's say, confidence and everything changed, was I looked at that bottle and I thought it was a magic potion that one could just like spray it and feel that great. One could spray it and feel that they could take on the world. And I would never forget that bottle. I was so fascinated with it. I was so fascinated by the colors. And so in the second collection in itself, when I was thinking about it, I was presenting this idea of packaging and women also who are treated as like a packaged item, an object, So there were so many like sub layers to it. And simply speaking, I also love the colors. So that was pretty much all of that. Yeah.
I love it. I love that. I want to talk a little bit about some other artistic references throughout your collections. Because in this book, your mood boards are so elaborate. Give me a second,
I'm listening to you. I just want to turn on the lights, okay?
Yes, okay. Don't go away.
I'm here. Sorry. Okay, I'm
here.
Okay.
So you have very specific references in some of your collections to actual paintings that motivated the collection. So, for example, in 2011, you were inspired by John Singer Sargent's Parisian Beggar Girl.
Yeah.
A very famous painting.
Yeah, and look for it. I'm listening to you.
Yeah. So I just, I love this idea of the mood board and then seeing the finished product.
Yeah. So this is the one you're talking about, yes.
Exactly. So that's the John Singer Sargent. You could talk about that. You could even, I know we talked about Georgia O'Keeffe, but like, how did the cow skull, for example, become a dress?
Let me talk about the Parisian Beggar.
Sure. Perfect.
It was the... Okay. So I think it was my fourth collection or fifth collection. I don't know what it was. As I told you, my journey, like, immediately took off. I wasn't expecting it to take off immediately from my first collection. So what happens is usually in our industry and also in any industry, everyone is quick to anoint the king. They're quick to be like, he's the next big thing. Like, he's the this and that, And, if you're not careful, living in a city where, you become the next hot thing, the next it thing, it's very easy to get carried away. And everyone loves you. Right? And the love is also fleeting. I've always looked at it that way. And in that particular moment, I remember feeling so surrounded by people during, like, as I was doing this collection, everyone wanted, like, all this stuff, and yet feeling very alone, Wow. And so I remember thinking to myself, like, it was at that right around that time also, like, I had a little bit of like a breakup, like with someone, and it was like a very much like a heartbreak. And I started the collection with the song was Addicted to Love with Florence. She did that, and with Carly Kloss, like, and the Persian beggar girl and all of that stuff. It created a mood for me. What I do usually is when I design a collection is I surround the room, design room with like all these arts and inspiration boards, so everyone gets into the mood of that feeling, right? And that to me was I wanted to capture that, like slightly undone. It was that, and it was also Miss Havisham from Charles Dickens' novels, which I was like really, really inspired by, because so my reference is always like art and book or music, so that's how it started, and that's how we ended up there.
I love it. So I want to, before we run out of too much time, talk about there's an activist spirit to your brand. You use the runway often as a place to make a statement, a bold statement. There have been some really incredible moments at the finale of a Prabal show for anyone who's been fortunate enough to attend. I want to talk about 2017. The models come out in mass. We've got message t-shirts, and I'm just trying to. I want to make sure that I'm.
I think you're talking about.
No, I wanted to read. Oh, here they are. So I wanted to read some of the messages on the t-shirts. The future is female, obviously the most memorable. Yeah. Stay woke. Girls just want to have fundamental rights.
Yeah.
And right now we're in a very weird time. There's no catwalk to make the same statement on. So I just want to hear a little bit about the ethos of the brand in terms of being participatory in global events, and how you're going to deal with that with no catwalk necessarily go forward.
Yeah.
For the immediate future.
Yeah. So when I started my brand in 2009, I started it with an idea of creating a luxury brand with a soul. And soul to me is a simple idea. Through your work, you validate someone in front of you, that they matter, that their existence matters. For me, I am here because of I'm inspired by women, because of, strong, incredibly smart, intelligent women in my life who love art and creativity and style. And I'm in business because women buy my clothes. So during this time, it was I've always been very vocal about, conversation around feminism, equality, minority rights, inclusivity, and diversity. It's always been my ethos. In this particular moment, what had happened was I was actively involved with Hillary Clinton's campaign. I thought for the first time, we're going to America, the leading country, in so many ways, globally, was going to finally have a female president. And it was really important because I thought, simply because what happens in America oftentimes creates a ripple effect in other countries. If you look globally right now also. When that didn't happen, due to, and I always say we elected her. She won the popular vote by millions, and we all felt a collective loss. And I felt like it was a moment to really have this conversation. Why a dream that was so important to so many people, women, men, everyone around globally, didn't happen, And I wanted to remind people, let this be a documentation of a particular moment in history that was supposed to change the course of where we are today. We wouldn't be here today if she was the president. And I wanted to make sure that we documented that our lack of involvement has resulted in that. Our lack of vigilance has resulted in that, So I think it was something that I always wanted to have a conversation, and style and substance is an incredibly important thing for me. Like, I'm a kind of person, I like to talk about like politics, what's happening, everything, and then I can talk about TV shows, dancing, music. I can talk, I want to know, I'm like very curious thing. Well, I have a very curious mind. And in this particular moment, when I remember it was Cindy Levy, who was the editor-in-chief of Glamour magazine at that time, said to me, a couple of years ago, he said, Prabal, how does it feel when the world finally, and when the world and the culture finally catches up to you? You've been at this for such a long time.
Yeah.
And I said to her, I didn't set out to, become an activist. I didn't set out to speak up for rights and everything because I wanted the world to recognize me as that. I simply did because of what I went through as a child, what I saw, and what I thought was the right thing to do. And I simply do this because with this idea that the absolute truth about our lives is the impermanence of it.
Yeah.
We might go tomorrow, we might go when we are 100. It doesn't matter. What are you leaving behind? What are you doing with your time? Those are like things that really I think about, you know. And in this particular moment, what I've done, I thought I had done enough. It was not enough. So in this particular moment, what I've started doing is, if not more than half an hour per day, I actively question myself about everything, my own prejudices, things that I like, why do I like, is it from a colonial Eurocentric point of view? Is that what is, like, you know, is that why I'm informed? Is that why I think it is chic? Is that why I like that art? You know, I'm questioning everything, my own sense of aesthetic, my own sense of taste and style and everything, because I think what 2020 and this pandemic has done is, yes, there are two ways we can look at it. We can feel defeated in this particular moment and be like, oh, it is, you know, really challenging. The truth is that it's challenging for everyone. Business is challenging and everything. But I will say this is also a moment for us to really unpack everything that we thought we knew, let it go, and really start to learn new things. Because it is clearly important that we do that. So that's what I'm doing now.
Well, you're so, I don't know, you're just so unique in that you are so connected to your gut and you are so authentic. And just, it's incredible what you've done in terms of representing so many different thoughts as well as types of humanity on the runway. And you've been doing it, as you say, well before you were not looking for the feedback. So as a audience,
let me just interrupt you. When I was doing it, everyone, majority of the people turned to me and said, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, I lost businesses. I won't lie. There were a few stores who I thought that I was really political. Okay. There were like a lot of people, almost everyone, 99.9% from the industry and outside the industry told me not to do it, you know? But I was just like, this is how I feel instinctively. This is the right thing to do. And oftentimes right thing to do is not necessarily the most popular, you know?
Yeah, you are definitely ahead of your time. And since you mentioned that you like to cover all topics, both, you know, weightier matters and lighter, let's just get a little bit on a lighter note before we close. I just would love to know, Prabal, is there anything creative you're doing in the quarantine outside of your usual sketching, something that's sort of like taking you outside of yourself in new ways that you'd like to share?
You know what I've been doing is like mentally taking care of myself, doing like working out and meditating has been like a big thing for me. Making sure I'm eating right. But I've been spending a lot of time with my other creatives, other friends of mine. And besides that, I've been reading a lot. I've been sketching a lot. And you know, I've watched like several TV shows and everything. Like, and I haven't like really watched a lot of it. What I've allowed myself to do is really immerse myself in solitude, you know, and it has been the biggest blessing for me to live in your thoughts and to really unpack it, to really swim with it, swim with those difficult emotions and thoughts that you never had to deal with because you're constantly busy, and to realize that actually they don't matter. You know, it's not as big as I thought it was. And what has been the biggest thing for me, creatively, culturally, politically, and personally for me is I live near Washington Square Park. So every day there's a protest that goes on there or right in front of my house on Broadway. So I've been actively going to all these protests, you know, wearing masks, maintaining social distancing, but that has filled my soul, fueled me. I decided to stay in New York and not go anywhere else because I wanted to see, because I knew this particular moment is going to be historical, and I wanted to be part of it. And, you know, like a lot of my friends were like, oh, can 2020, can we just cancel it? You know, and I said like, and I always said like, no, 2020 for me, in 20 years of my life in New York, 2020 has been the best summer of my life.
Wow.
You know, it has, because it is challenging. It is the most difficult. The business is challenging for everyone, all of us. But it is to see the country globally and a reckoning, an awakening happening, conversation, difficult conversation coming in forefront, all these stuff that's happening. I am looking and watching, and I'm like, my God, what an incredible time to be alive. That's what I came to New York for. Because I felt, you know, revolution happens in small pockets, right? And now it's like collectively coming together. And to see things that I believed in manifest in its own way. I mean, I feel so blessed to be alive.
Wow.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't think there's more we can add, because you're the first person I've heard say that, you know, you'll look back fondly on 2020, and you're actually giving me a lot to think about, and I'm sure everybody listening. Prabal, anything that you'd like to share with the ARTnews community? It's been such a pleasure to have you here today.
So thank you very much. I always say this. I always say, whatever race you are, have the difficult conversation. Have the conversation. Instead of thinking of it as a difficult conversation, think of it as a necessary conversation. We all are, nobody's perfect, so don't be afraid to make a mistake. And if you get called out for it, hold yourself accountable. That's fine, you know, but have the courage to do the right thing. And just, what I don't want people to do is try to escape this particular moment, you know. Just be alive, just be present, just be vigilant, because come November, and you know, we need, like, we are working towards this. Come November, we owe it to the world, we owe it to the universe that the power structure looks different in America. We owe it to our generation next and ancestors before. We need to make sure that we are vigilant and prepared. So enjoy August, enjoy September, come October and November, let's just make sure we are out there really, really working to make sure this whole thing changes. So that's all I'm asking.
Prabal, thank you for bringing so much joy, so much thought, and so much brightness to the world and to this conversation. Have a wonderful rest of the summer.
No, thank you very much. You take care of you, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks,
okay.
Prabal.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.